As much as we all love the sport of football, there is one thing we can all agree on, and that is it is an extremely violent sport. And, it happens every play, as collisions that are the impact of car crashes happen frequently, as 320-pound linemen blocking 285 to 300-pound linemen running full speed at them is not normal in the everyday world, right? So in football, injuries happen at a very high rate, and a lot of the time players we like get injured, and unfortunately that is a part of the game. And what we're going to discuss in today's video are players that are going to come back in 2021, and they are going to be the players we once knew them as. We're going to be discussing a few players that had their seasons cut short in 2020, whether it was due to nagging injuries or just, unfortunately, season-ending injuries. Now, before we get started, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as each only take a second to do, and it would be very much appreciated. Now, let's begin. And the first player we are going to start out with today's video is wide receiver Julio Jones of the Falcons. Now, Julio has been one of the top two receivers over the past decade, the other being Antonio Brown or Calvin Johnson, if you really want to include Calvin in that. I'm not looking for debate, but Julio has been one of the top 2 or 3 receivers over the past decade, and I don't really think there's any way to deny what he's done. And I think at times in 2020, with the emergence of players like Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams, and not that either of those guys weren't good before, more so the elite emergence rather than just the good to great level that they were at prior to 2020, people kind of forgot about Julio Jones and, how good he was. And not that they forgot and just, he's just, this guy or whatever, but he had 770 yards in 2020, and I think at times, people were just kind of like, he's 30 plus now, and he's just, I don't want to say a thing of the past, but people definitely forgot how dominant he was. As 2014 through 2019, Julio averaged a 16-game season, as you'll see on the screen right now. He averaged 108 catches and 1,600 yards per season, and I don't know the amount of receivers that actually averaged that over a 6-year career, 6-year span, if you will, but the list is not many, and Julio is going to bounce back this year. And when Julio and any receiver really plays on a team that was as bad as the Falcons were in 2020, they finished with a top 5 pick, and another team in their division won the Super Bowl, they generally get, I don't want to say forgotten about, but they are an afterthought in terms of the media. People just aren't focusing on them, and I do think Julio will bounce back in 2021 in a big way. Kyle Pitts will certainly attract some attention from opposing defenses, as will Calvin Ridley, and Matt Ryan will probably have very good numbers in 2021. Now, I don't want to say MVP because that implies that they're probably going to go 13-4 or 12-5, as MVPs generally aren't, 5,000-yard passers on 5-12 teams, and not to say the Falcons will be that, but they're probably not going to win the division with the Bucs in their division. But Julio Jones himself will be back in 2021, and he will soon make people remember why he was the dominant receiver that we all remember him as in the 2010s. And next is a player that had a good rookie season back in 2018, followed up by a Pro Bowl season in 2019, and followed that with a torn ACL in 2020 and early in the 2020 season at that, and it is Broncos receiver Cortez Sutton. Now, for Denver over the past few years, and they had that lull period after the Super Bowl win back in 2015, but 2019 through 2021, this was a team that was supposed to be on the rise, and in 2019 they finished the year 4-1 with Drew Lock, and they were looking to take that over in the 2020 to potentially challenge the Chiefs and have a good rivalry of Drew Lock and Patrick Mahomes for the next 10 years. And unfortunately what they got in 2020 was nowhere near that, as Drew Lock had a sophomore slump, Cortez Sutton tore his ACL, and granted it wasn't all bad for them as Jerry Jeudy had a good rookie year, but for today's video, Cortez Sutton tore his ACL early in the year, and it was kind of that's kind of signified what it was going to be for the Broncos in 2020. I mean, at a point they had to play the Saints with no quarterbacks, and when you have that type of luck, or should I say lack of, compensation from the NFL to say, hey, let's just postpone this game a couple days like we saw multiple other teams have, it was generally that type of year for Denver. But Cortland will rebound in 2021, and that is with or without good quarterback play. I mean, he had 1,100 yards in 2019, and, the quarterback play during his time in Denver has never at any point been elite, where you're like, wow, like, Cortland could be a 1,500-yard receiver due in large part to the quarterback's play. It's been more due part to Cortland rather than the quarterback's play, right? So Cortland, Jerry Jeudy, and Noah Fant. We all thought this was going to be a trio in 2020 that was going to be fun to watch, and unfortunately it was more hype than actual production because we never really got to see it. And I really can't wait to see Cortland return in 2021. He is one of my favorite players in the NFL. And of course, you guys know I love Jerry Jeudy as well. So I really am rooting for this Denver team to, get back and make everything better. And I really do hope Drew Lock, comes to be the guy, even though they did trade for Teddy Bridgewater. Who knows how that's going to play out. Hopefully each guy motivates one another and, we get the best of what each of those guys can be. And in turn with that would be Noah Fant, Jerry Jeudy, and of course the subject of today's video, Cortland Sutton, all having good 2021 seasons and the Broncos winning more NFL games. Now next is another player that unfortunately tore his ACL in 2020, and he was a very promising defensive end that had a good rookie season in 2019, and it is Nick Bosa of the 49ers. Now, what I am going to be curious about is, I don't want to see how much impact Robert Saleh had on the 2019 49ers, because that defensive line was loaded with players like Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, and everyone else, right? But what I am curious is how much impact the losses over the past 2 years of both DeForest Buckner and Robert Saleh will have on Nick's game in 2021. Now, I don't think 2019 was a fluke for Nick and that he was just a rookie sensation and that, he's just going to be an average pass rusher from here on out. I certainly do not think that, but I am curious as to how much it will impact his game, right? But I do think Nick will be back to being a great player. And, he did not hit 10 plus sacks in his rookie year, and obviously he tore his ACL in week 2 last season, so he didn't have a 10-sack week 1, so he didn't hit it last year either. So I do think Nick will hit 10 sacks for the first time in his young career in 2021, and I don't really think that's a bold prediction by any means, but I do think the 49ers will more than be back, as they got their quarterback of the future now in Trey Lance, and as we know, Kyle Shanahan can make any running back in the history of the game pretty much run for 150 yards on any given game, and not to take credit away from the 49ers running backs, but Kyle is a mastermind of the zone run scheme. But how will Nick Bosa play in 2021 is a legitimate question I have, and as you guys have seen and heard, I do think he will play good, and I do think he will bounce back, and there's a reason he is in today's video. I just do wonder, how much impact Saleh will have, and, really for that matter, how much Saleh will impact a player like Quinnen Williams, from the 2019 draft class who was selected directly after Nick Bosa was. How much can Robert impact Quinnen Williams' career, and can he make him a 10-plus sack defensive tackle? That would be very impressive, but for the sake of today's video, I do think Nick Bosa will be a 12-plus sack player for the first time of hopefully many in his career in 2021. And the final player for today's video, and as you can see, I kind of record these throughout the day, so if the light from the mic makes my face look a little more red, I at least just want to give you guys a background as to why that is. But the final player for today's video is Giants running back Saquon Barkley. Now, Saquon has been the typical running back where, he's great early in his career, and then it's just kind of just on a downward slope for the rest, right? And now, granted, that's not all due to Saquon's fault, as he's had, back-to-back seasons with unfortunate injuries, and 2020 was the first year of his, athletic career dating back to high school even, where it was a true just season ender and just, downright unfortunate thing, an unfortunate roadblock in his path, right? Now, everyone gets injured at some point. The injury rate in the NFL and really most of football is about 100%, especially in professional football, it is 100%. Someone gets a tweak here, tweak there, pulls a muscle, does whatever, right? But Saquon had a season-ending injury last year and was averaging 1.8 yards per carry at the time of the injury. Now, obviously, I'm going to go out on a bold limb here and say I think Saquon would have averaged more than 1.8 yards per carry at the end of the 2020 season had he, played all 16 games, but as we know, that did not happen. So I do think Saquon will be back, and it's going to be a lot less, pressure on him this year, not from a, media standpoint, but from a player standpoint on his own offense. There are so many weapons on the, on the Giants that if they, if an opposing defense says, we're going to take Saquon out of the game, well, Daniel Jones can throw the ball to a lot of other weapons, from Darius Slayton to Kenny Golladay to Pro Bowl tight end Evan Ingram to the first-round pick Kadarius Toney to even 10-year veteran Kyle Rudolph. There are so many weapons for Daniel Jones to be able to throw the ball to that, if a defense says we're going to take Saquon effectively out of the game, well, Now, granted, the game would be in Daniel Jones' hands, but the point is there are so many ways that the Giants can go this year, and there's so many, routes that don't have to be necessarily just through Saquon, and because of that, I do think he's going to be a lot more efficient this year as a runner, and ultimately as a football player, right? Now, I'm not going to say 6.57 yards per carry, because those are college-type numbers, but I do think it's not out of the realm to say Saquon could have, 1,500 to 1,700 total yards on a lot less touches than what he had in his rookie year, because his rookie year, it was pretty much like, all right, Saquon, let's see what you got, and go out there and see what happens, right? But anyways, to wrap up today's video, I do think Saquon will have a great 2021 year and will be back in the Pro Bowl like he deserves. Now, with that being said, that's all I have for today's video, and I also do want to get something out of the way. We are this deep into the video. I did record a video for the second channel, and like I said, same day, so it's going to be same shirt. It's not like I just walk around with the same shirt all the time. It just happens that way sometimes. So anyways, I just did want to clear that up. And anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And if you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world. And until next time, have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.